Hello and welcome to Breakfast All Day. I am Christy. Somewhere around here is Alonso and somewhere is Matt. We are all in our little respective boxes in our parts of Southern California talking about Beastie Boys Story, this great documentary on Apple Plus. I'm super biased because I love the Beastie Boys, so this took me back to high school. But Alonso, perhaps you are not as gung-ho about this as I am. I don't know.
No, I'm a fan too. I remember it didn't grab me immediately, but I was very into Licensed to Ill when it came out my junior year in college, and then I followed them from that point on, saw them live once. So this is basically Spike Jonze directing, and the two surviving Beastie Boys, Mike Diamond, aka Mike D, and Adam Horovitz, Ad Rock, talking about the history of the band and where it started and how they were friends in New York who hung out and were kind of on the periphery of the punk scene originally, but then rap started happening, and they kind of threw this band together, and before they knew it, a song they meant as a joke became a smash hit, Fight for Your Right to Party.
And Cookie Puss. Before that, Cookie Puss.
Well, first Cookie Puss, yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, I'm truncating. If you want the full story, you can watch the movie. And just sort of about how that breaking with Rick Rubin and Russell Simmons and kind of figuring out stuff on their own. And structurally, it's not unlike Varda by Agnes, which also sort of took these live stage shows where Varda would talk to different collaborators and stuff about her work and kind of walked you through her filmography. So this is the two surviving Beastie Boys talking about, their story, and it's the highlights. Obviously, you're not going to hear a lot about some of the failed marriages, the drug problems are kind of skated over. But we talk about Tibet, and we talk about, just putting together Paul's Boutique and how it was a complete flop at the time, but now it's considered one of the most important hip hop albums ever recorded. And it's a lovely film. It's there's genuine love with these guys. The once it became the core three of them, the band never broke up. They stayed friends. When Adam Yauch died, they were like, well, we're done then. We can't do it without him. So it's this wonderful, they're doing it on stage in Brooklyn, but apparently they had, it's based on the sort of coffee table book about the band that was released. And it really just kind of just takes you through this amazing story of the stuff they did and their musical innovations and their everything.
Do you feel like you have to know and like the Beastie Boys to know and like this movie?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it does what a documentary is supposed to do in terms of it tells you a story. It walks you through a thing. So whether this is a story you already know or half know or don't know at all, I mean, you'll follow along. If you don't like the band, I don't know if this is going to win you over necessarily, but I mean, I think that they're really charming, and it is interesting because it would have been very easy for them to have disappeared as a gimmick, By the time they left, Def Jam, I think they felt that Rick Rubin and Russell Simmons just wanted any white guys that they could find to sort of sell rap to the masses. But then it was on them to sort of no, we're actually, it's like when the Monkees insisted that they could play their own instruments, they were assembled as this this package deal, but they sort of then really were allowed to prove themselves as musicians. These guys were famously obnoxious and bratty and drunk and whatever, but then it was no, we actually have chops, we actually know what we're doing here. And so then when they hook up with the Dust Brothers and make Paul's Boutique, it's we're not this joke one-hit wonder band. We really know what we're doing here.
Matt, what do you think? Do you have to like the Beastie Boys to like this movie?
I don't think so. Sorry, I had disappeared to go and grab my copy of the Beastie Boys book.
Okay.
Which is a terrific book, and I don't know that it's fair
Hold
to
it
call
up.
I couldn't find it. It would take me too long to find it.
Okay.
It's actually, I wouldn't call it a coffee table book. It's
okay. Maybe I've never seen it. I didn't know. Okay.
I actually, I was a little worried about it going into this because Pitchfork had said, oh, it's basically everything in the book. granted, like, what does Pitchfork know about movies? Being
And we didn't all read the book Pitchfork.
right. So having read the book, I actually think this is a great companion piece to the book. It covers things in the movie covers things that the book doesn't. The book completely glosses over them leaving Def Jam. Like there's no mention of that at all. Whereas this gets into it. You know, and yes, it's the Beastie Boys those guys telling their own story. So you're not going to necessarily get warts and all, but in both the book and the movie, there does seem, a genuine regret. Like, boy, we became the thing we were riffing on. And it took them till, really ill communication that they were really comfortable with who they are. One of my takeaways from this is that, first of all, I think Yalk has a great,
Adam Horovitz.
Adrock has a great potential future as like a writer and storyteller. A lot of this stuff, and having read what's in the book, a lot of the stuff, you see in the movie, and they talk about how they're reading off a teleprompter, and a lot of it is Adrock. Probably much more so than Mike D.
Well, one of the things the movie never mentions is that Horovitz's father is like a successful playwright, that he didn't just sort of come out of nowhere.
Well, and having read the book, he's a good writer, right? He's an emotional writer, and and not that Mike D is bad, but the Adrock stuff in there is the best stuff in the book, and I think some of his stories and some of his insight gets, it's very, perceptive, and I think very kind of moving in places. And, you absolutely see him get really choked up about their last show. And that's him reading, a whole essay about the last show that's right out of the book. And it is fascinating to see these guys look back on a very varied career. That's, they've had this luxury of being able to kind of learn who they are in the public eye on the fly, and managed to turn into something that they're proud of. And that's a luxury that I think very, very, very few people that are famous ever get. And I can't help but think, because they both are so kind of, in awe of Yawk, that I think that there's a fair amount of, it does make me think, like they end in the movie saying, Yawk's the guy who really made us who we were. And it's fun. Like they talk constantly about how, they do stuff because they thought it's funny. And you see that come through in the movie. Like the missed cues about crazy shit become kind of an almost running joke in the movie, in the shooting, right? So that's really fun. The stuff that comes in over the credits, super fun.
Stay through the credits. So important.
Christy, answer your own question. Do you think people have to go in knowing and loving this band?
I do. And I'll tell you why. Because I just did Film Week, and I was on with Angie Hahn. It actually just aired like in the last hour. And I'm realizing, is a lot younger than us. And she's got to be like in her early 30s, because I was rhapsodizing and like profusely praising it and how it took me back. And I had a giant smile on my face the whole time. And I found myself like tearing up by the end. And she's like, I don't feel any of that. I don't like the Beastie Boys. I didn't grow up with them. And, I was entertained, but by the end of it, I felt like they're happy now. And I'm happy that they're happy. So it's so funny.
That's a thing that even happens with hip hop fans, right? Like the people that are following current hip hop artists and are really, really into it, don't really care about, the bands that seem really essential to us. So they don't really care about Run DMC or Beastie Boys. Like, it's hard enough to get some of these kids even interested in bands like Wu-Tang Clan. Like, they just kind of they're not into it. They're into what they listen to now. And it's like in the 80s, I don't know about you guys, I was listening to a lot of new wave. And so you kind of couldn't get me at all interested in the Eagles. Like, I fucking hate the Eagles, man.
I've had a long night, and I hate the fucking Eagles, man.
No, but like, the classic rock that a lot of my friends were listening to, because, and even like Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin, and like in the 80s, I could give a shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though they were still making some music, I didn't really care.
Well, I think a more direct correlation would be like if you were into new wave music, but you didn't necessarily care about listening to the Velvet Underground, even though that's a band that did inspire directly a lot of those kind of bands and stuff. I mean, we're talking about within genre here. Like if you're saying people who listen to contemporary hip hop aren't as interested in like the 70s, 80s iterations of same.
Well, but that's the thing is I think it's more of a generational thing, right? Like the Beastie Boys haven't put out an album in 10 years.
Right.
And, there's not for a lot of, I mean, it's like this for a lot of musicians, just not just hip hop artists. There's not like a 3-decade shelf life, right? I mean, we're talking about a band that really hit it biggest arguably in the 90s,
mm-hmm.
right? And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I totally get, Christy, where you're coming from, like
mm-hmm.
a younger class of people who didn't grow up on that and doesn't know the words to half the songs, like,
Yeah, so I loved it, but I also walked into it thinking I was going to love it. I mean, License to Ill is high school for me. It is my first boyfriend driving around the valley and singing all those songs. So I have a lot of
close to their best record.
It's not, but that's for me, that's like the first nostalgic tug of that. And then I've come to love every evolution of them since. And so
this is an okay Xer movie then.
Yeah, no, I pretty much. And but I really enjoyed it. But also what was really cool was the balance of the playfulness with the introspection, right? Because they still, Mike D and Adam Rock still have this great chemistry with each other, which they've forged over like 35 years together. They play off each other. They're playing with Spike Jonze. It's very meta in a lot of ways. And watching them, talk in front of the screen with, old photos, old footage. There's a wealth of cool stuff that they've unearthed for this, and stories about, shooting the Sabotage video. And they did it totally like guerrilla style with no permits and like random clothes that they found in the closet of the house they were renting. They have a lot of really fun stories to tell, and it moves. It's like 2 hours long, but it really moves very well. And then you come away with this appreciation as well of Adam Yauch as like Brian Wilson figure of the band, in that he was just a genius and he was experimenting, and he had a deep spirituality that he brought to it. And so I had a new appreciation for him as well. But I love that now that they're, grown-ass men in their mid-50s, that they can look back on the lyrics of a song like Girls, and feel remorse for their younger, stupider selves. Yeah. And even in Sure Shot, Adam Yauch has a section in Sure Shot about, the mothers and the sisters and the wives, and, and
friends. Come on, keep going.
So
offer my love and respect to the end.
The end, yeah. So, but they were maturing, and
they're one of the few hip hop acts that ever apologized for their homophobia.
Yeah. And so I appreciate that they are really candid about all of that. And then the whole section where Adam Horovitz is sitting on the edge of the stage and getting choked up thinking about the last show they played together. And even later on, like when they're wrapping it up and they're sitting on side by side in the stools, there's a section he can't read of the prompter because he's got to cry again. I was really moved by that. And Katie Walsh and Brian Tallarico both also tweeted about this, like, I'm crying watching the Intergalactic video. Why? So, and as you guys heard at the beginning of the podcast, if you're listening to this on the podcast, Intergalactic is our song for the week. So, I was impressed by how much more they achieved within just the structure of a stage show. It's not totally navel gazing. There's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, it's the story of this friendship, I think, as much as anything else, and that's kind of what it keeps it from just feeling like an infomercial for the band. And weren't they great? Then don't you want to go buy their back catalog? I think there is that the personal stuff is what really kind of brings it home. Yeah, I found myself getting choked up, like when they talk about creating the bass line for Sabotage, because it's so iconic. It's like the thought that it didn't exist and then it did, like there's certain pieces of music, like going back to like, certain classical pieces or, like certain, obviously throughout the history of pop and rock, we're like, there was a time where that didn't exist. Like that's just always been there, right?
The whole Sabotage story is really good, but then the whole story of their musical evolution is really interesting the whole way through, and how they kept learning things and teaching each other and taking those pieces and evolving together as a group. So I really enjoyed it. I'm giving it a 9. I think you should see it.
Yeah, I'm going to jump my score up to a 9.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to jump my score up to a 9.
All right.
All right. Then to make it easy, I'm going to say an 8.4. So that's an 8.8 from us.
Thank you for doing that. I was about to like get my little calculator out on my phone.
A couple things I want to add to this. If you want to find out more about Sabotage, on the book, and I can't recommend the book highly enough. The Beastie Boys book is absolutely terrific. Even if you're not a huge super fan, it really, again, it's a great companion piece to this movie, and it really kind of gives you, similar to the movie, it's this great story about a long-lasting friendship. And there's endless stories about the kind of like things that Yock would teach himself to get the sound that he wanted out of certain things and the way they would experiment. But if you want to find out more about Sabotage specifically, there's a great, if you can still find it, there was a DVD box set of Beastie Boys videos.
Oh, the Criterion one, it's still in print, I checked.
Yeah, so pick that up because you also get a lot of audio commentary, including Spike Jonze talking about the filming of the Sabotage video. And that's super fun. And it's got the piece that MTV made him take out, which is throwing the dummy off the bridge. And that's a really fun part because then they're also pointing out people on the screen like, oh yeah, Sir Stewart showed up. We were really glad we got him for that day. That was really nice of him to show up. That's really fun. And then if you've not seen Awesome I Fucking Shot That,
I have seen that video, and I reviewed it.
Yeah, that's terrific. And the performance of Sabotage in that is awesome. Watching Money Mark standing on his hands on the keyboard. That's terrific.
I really wanted to love Awesome I Fucking Shot That because I'm a fan of this band, clearly. But like, it's so like dizzy making, and then because you have random people shooting the video, like someone's taking the camera in the bathroom with them.
That was
like
the whole point.
I know, but I didn't like it. I'm like, stay at the goddamn concert. It's the Beastie Boys. Don't leave. Don't go get a beer now. Anyway.
My recommendation would be to watch the movie Danger Diabolic because it's a really fun like 60s spy movie, and then watch the video for Body Movin'.
Which is the Fatboy Slim remix.
The Fatboy Slim remix is great, yes, yeah. but the video is amazing.
All right, real quick, everybody's favorite album by the Beastie Boys.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of stuff on Ill Communication is very good, of course. I have a bunch of Beastie Boys that I have played as podcast opening songs here. I do still have like a soft spot for License to Ill just because it's my childhood.
Yeah, I'd say I listened to License to Ill probably more times than the other ones. I'd say I respect Paul's Boutique the most because it's their imperial bedroom. It's like the flop album that the critics are all like, "Ooh, it's so," And so I do appreciate what they're doing and the density of the whole thing.
I gotta go with Hello
Check
Nasty.
Your Head, maybe.
I gotta go with Hello Nasty. I love Hello Nasty.
There's no wrong answer here.
Yeah, and then this is kind of cheating because it mixes up songs from a couple different places, but In Sound from Way Out is super cool because it's all the instrumental tracks from Check Your Head and Ill Communication presented as one album.
They did a really cool thing around like 99, 2000, and it was sort of pre-iTunes, where you could custom make your own like 2 CD set of things. There was like a menu of songs to pick from, and then you could just pick whichever ones you want, and they would mail you these 2 CDs, and then you could have your own title on the spine. So I have a 2 CD set of Beastie Boys songs that's called Dave White is a Fucking Bitch.
Which could be a Beastie Boys song.
Exactly. It's an inside joke.
Oh my God.
That's awesome. That's really
amazing.
Good.
All right, one last question.
Yes.
Where did you see him in concert?
In Nashville, Tennessee, on the tour with Run DMC.
Oh, so in the 80s.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've never seen them. And I guess now I never can. That's a bummer. But I've seen Depeche Mode and Erasure many times.
Okay.
There you go. Matt, did you see him?
Yeah, I saw them when they had Awesome I Fucking Shot That at Sundance. I got snuck into the show that they were doing at the Lodge, at the ski lodge.
Nice.
There were like all of maybe 150, 200 people in that room.
Amazing.
Mixmaster Mike comes out and does a 45-minute set before they even come out. It was mind-blowing.
Amazing.
And we were right up against the stage. And during that show, I'm like, I'm never going to be able to see these guys again. It'll never get better.
Well, it's funny. I remember I went to see them on the tour with Run DMC, and it was called like Friends Forever, Together Forever, or something like that. And my friend Kurt who went, we were like, yeah, forever. Like the idea being like, well, Run DMC is going to be around, like they're going to matter. These guys are like a flash in the pan, and then like, well, who knew?
That's really funny. All right, do the spiel.
All right, thanks for watching. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. We got TV recaps. We review classics that our subscribers pick. We do all kinds of crazy shenanigans. You don't want to miss it. So thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.